Often, as adults, it can seem like funny or weird, or we get uncomfortable, and so we don't want to try, or we don't want to, make a mistake, and then there's all those worries. But the more that we do, like the difference it makes is really huge. I cannot tell you. I've had instances where I've sat with a young person who has never had her name and pronouns used in a small town in northern BC. Sat with her for an hour, used her name, used her pronouns, and we talked about video games, like literally nothing else, but we believed her when she told us who she was, and we treated her that way. And the difference we saw at the end was astronomical. She told me she was proud of herself for the first time in her life. And that's no small thing, right?
We've been conducting research in BC schools across the entire school districts, across all of the province. And what we found is that what goes on in the school makes a difference, creating a climate for students. And when you create a safe and inclusive school through SOGI policies and GSAs, it actually benefits all kids.
A lot of the teachers had rainbow stickers on their doors that said this is a LGBTQ safe place or something like that. I don't know if teachers really knew how effective that was for a student who hadn't come out yet, because that told me, as a queer student, as a gay student, if anything happens, I can go to you.
The safe space stickers are really important because it tells students that not only is this person someone who is going to be a support, but there's someone that you can go to and you can ask questions, and they'll have answers. Or if they don't have answers, they'll get back to you. And I think when a student sees that sticker, what it says to them isn't just simply like, oh, I can trust this person. It's, this person is someone I can go to seek guidance and support.
Just make it aware by little subtle clues that it is okay to be gay in school. It is okay to be out. Clues like your classroom is a safe space, be it, a poster or a rainbow flag in your classroom. Just kind of these little subconscious clues that kind of make us students feel safe in your class.
There's a few things that you can do as an educator to support non-binary students, and they're all pretty straightforward. So first thing that you can do is validate the student's identity by not questioning their identity and maybe asking them a question if you're not familiar with the term that they're using. So what does that mean for you to be non-binary, to be genderqueer, to be agender? The other thing that I would do is make sure that you're using vocabulary that's inclusive and not assuming that gender is a binary category, right? So we often say things like boys and girls, or people of both genders do X or Y, right? Or sometimes we even use the expression people of the opposite gender. You want to use expressions that don't make that assumption. So you could say, hey everyone, instead of hey boys and girls, or things like people of all genders, right? So these expressions automatically kind of include more folks.
Just break out of the gender stereotypes, instead of separating our classroom boys and girls, and that kind of binary always being our fallback, separate it into birthdays or favorite colors, things like that.
The other thing that you can do is make sure that you have forums and questionnaires or any sort of administrative forums that you have, that they have more inclusive categories.
When you're starting a class and you're getting to know the students and you're trying to create a setting where people can refer to each other correctly, if you can create a form where youth can fill out information that would be useful for them to share with you. You could have a little box that says, like, can I disclose this with the class?
So we take the lead from the student. If the student wants to then share it with certain staff members and not others, if they want to reveal this to their family or not, if they want to involve their peers or not. So just maintaining respect and confidentiality and building trust with the student. I think each student is different, and we have to take the lead from what the student wants.
For people who think that it's too hard to use they as a singular pronoun, it's really important just to practice.
I want to give you an example of how easy it is and how we use it without even thinking about it. If the doorbell rings and we don't know who's at the door, we might say to a friend of ours, can you answer the door? I'm not sure who's there. Can you tell them I'll be right down? So we'll use the word they rather than he or she, because we don't know the gender of the person at the door. The minute we see them and we make a decision about their gender, we're going to stumble maybe a little bit, but we use they quite effortlessly in our day-to-day lives. So we can use that as an example of how we can move it into broader usage.
I want to draw an analogy around students who have names from different countries. So for example, if you have a student from China who says, well, my Chinese name is this, and a teacher says, oh, I don't recognize that, that's not a legitimate name, that same argument doesn't make sense. And that same argument yet is made around trans students' pronouns. Oh, I don't recognize your pronoun. I'm not going to call you they. That's not real.
If you make a mistake when you're using a wrong pronoun, just acknowledge it, correct it right away, correct yourself right away, and then move on.
For me, the advice I have for educators coming in on their journey on all things SOGI is to be really curious. Open your minds and your hearts to kids. Who do we have here that we support? Because teachers will say to me, what pronoun do I use when I'm talking to a gender creative kid or a gender fluid 17-year-old? And I say, ask them. That's all they want.
We decided that we needed a gender-neutral washroom. Our school has been accommodating for students who required separate bathroom facilities, but we found that they were inadequate. I didn't actually make action towards this until the QSA's own students came forward and said, we need to get a gender-neutral washroom here at the school. So it was actually based on their actions. As of September this year, we will now have our first multi-user gender-neutral washroom installed and ready for use for all of our students at our school.
When people say they're not comfortable sharing a bathroom with a transgender person, I usually have a few questions for them. One is, you may have already shared a bathroom with a transgender person and you have no idea because ultimately it's really none of your business. Let's focus on behavior and not identity. So is someone's behavior in the washroom making you feel uncomfortable? Are they saying things, or are they trying to touch you inappropriately or look under your stall door? That's something that we can address, and that behavior happens regardless of identity or gender, right? Let's address the behavior, but if you're uncomfortable because of somebody's identity, that's actually something to do with you and not to do with them.
And it's interesting in those classrooms where the teacher's like, well, we don't, like when I ask about GSAs, and teacher's like, well, we don't really need one. Like we're a pretty inclusive environment. And then to see some kids' faces go like, actually.
So when it comes to GSAs, gay straight alliances, gender sexuality alliances, what makes a difference is it's changing the culture of the school. Just having one makes it visible for everyone. And what we found, again, is that when they've been around for a few years in a school, we see lower rates of suicidal thoughts and attempts, not just among sexual minority youth, but actually among straight youth as well.
I've presented to a lot of parents at a district setting or at individual parent meetings. What I reassure them is that this is content that is important for all students, and when we make our classrooms safe places, academic results improve.
We have parents who are just starting out on their journey of learning and understanding. And so it's taking them a little bit more time to understand why it's important and why we need to talk about these things. On the other hand, we've also had parents who have been so incredibly grateful for the work that we're doing and making sure that our spaces are very safe for their children.
I think that having a GSA is essential in a school setting. Having a space to have community and to belong and to contribute and collaborate with other clubs and initiatives in their school. Not just creating a space where they're tolerated, but creating a space where they're lit up.
I think it's just good in general to know that someone is supporting you. There was a few kids who came up to me and then they're telling me they heard about Pride Club and then they're really happy that we have a GSA, and other people who aren't in the club who need help, they're telling me that, oh, I'm so glad there's a GSA, but I'm still too scared to come. But I'm really glad that there is one because I feel like there's people like me.
At times, high school students might not be the most supported if they were to come out as queer. Having this GSA was very important for me in my coming out experience.
What we have done with the QSA is for sure, without a doubt, a starting point. It's a gradual process, but awareness and education and inclusivity don't come about in one day. We hear stories every day. They tell us that this is different. You know, this is what they have been waiting for so long, and it's coming about finally, and they're happy about it, you know.
The reality is that if you don't see people like you in society or in school, then you feel really alienated or isolated. Policies are a great start. GSAs are an important source of support for young people. How do we actually create inclusion for the diverse range of young people across gender, across sexuality, across ethnicity, and the variety of diversity that we see in schools?